Welcome back. All right, so I wanted to talk about this today. Now, every day, of course, I do previews, I do reviews. It is part and parcel of what this channel has been since 2017. I started reviewing hockey games, so that's why I still do it. It's been fun, and it definitely means that I have to watch as much of the action as possible, and I accept that challenge. So one thing I've noticed is that there are certain things, and this isn't just a hockey thing either. This, honestly, I could throw this on the Entertainment Guy channel. We could talk about football, basketball, baseball, and see some of the same sort of arguments around. And that's just North American sports. You take this globally, there's going to be a lot of discussions on why certain teams lose, and when there's an emotional investment that's your team, that's your favorite team, it's going to color I think it colors the opinions a bit. It's something I do my best to avoid on the channel as much as possible. It can be tough at times, sure. So I put at the top, your team lost most popular defenses, and number one seems to be to blame officiating, whether it's a referee, whether it's linesman, whether it's Toronto. Toronto, of course, meaning that they review a play, and Toronto says, yes, that's goalie interference. No, it's not goalie interference. Yes, that's a 5-minute major, that kind of thing. And so there's this idea that if the call doesn't go the way that you want it to, that maybe that's a sign that they have it out for you. I can't get behind that, and I know the whole hot mic Tim Peel incident. I know all of that. I'm not saying there aren't even up calls. I've talked about how there shouldn't be. And I mean if one team's going to get 5 penalties and the other one isn't going to get any because they're not committing any fouls, I think that's fine. I understand that the team that gets the 5 power plays, the fan base of the team that didn't get any is going to be pretty upset. But I honestly, it doesn't bother me. But that, again, that's me. And there are those who will defend the even up calls, right? And that's where there's that divergence where some fans think it's terrible and others say, no, it's good game management. Last night's games, there were numerous times where there was a penalty that made a team angry, and magically it became 4-on-4 seconds later. So that kind of thing, right? But anyways, I understand the blaming of officiating and everything. I don't generally blame them if my team doesn't win a game, though. The schedule could be a valid reason for a loss. I'm just going to say the schedule can be a valid reason for a loss. Now, for me, from a power rankings perspective, I just have to look at straight up wins and losses and who played well. So if a team has a lot of back-to-backs, New Jersey has a ton of back-to-backs this year, that's going to hurt their schedule, especially since New Jersey, not good in the second half of back-to-backs. But, there's other things you can blame there as well. And so the schedule is, I do think at times it can be a valid excuse. At times it feels like it's kind of an excuse. Like when I hear, well, this team's really tired, I think to myself, the NHL schedule is really, really difficult for every team. There are some that have, a relatively easy portion of the schedule, but that's usually followed by a really brutal part of the schedule. Or they get that easy part of the schedule after the brutal part of the schedule. 82 games, and the way the schedule is made up, it's going to be tough. Unless they went with some kind of a balanced schedule where it was like 7 or 8 games each night, and you try to, space out the games, and that's not going to happen. So it is what it is. And number 3, scapegoat. Now, the scapegoat is that player, that one player that cost your team the victory. And as long as your team has that player, they're not going to do anything in the playoffs. They're going to be a disappointment. It's going to be a frustration for you and all of your fellow fans. That one player has ruined your life. That's it. I see it where certain players will be the focal point of a fan base. And for me, again, because I watch as much as I can, sometimes I agree. Sometimes, like, you know what? That player kind of stunk tonight. I can't defend that. But other times I'm thinking, yeah, he had company. He had some company tonight. It's not just on him. There were a lot of players that were part of that. Most famously for me would be Luongo during his time in Vancouver. He would lose a game and immediately he's overpaid. The guy's a bum. I don't know why we have him. My answer would be, did you not see all the giveaways in their crease, or right in front of it? Stop it. Stop giving it away right in the slot like that. That's why Luongo allowed 6 or 7 that night. But again, you have that scapegoat. where you could say, we lost a game, but it's not because the team wasn't good enough. It's because that player, he's the bane of my existence. Coach needs to be fired. I think that's pretty obvious. I put coach has to be fired. I also put GM needs to be fired. That's 4 and 5. There's some validity to this on some level. The coach's bump is a thing. And teams will normally go on a little bit of a run after a coach has been changed. It doesn't usually last that long. Although we've seen in Edmonton, it's lasted for a while. But yeah, the coach's bump is there, and obviously that's an easy one too, where you're not pointing your finger at your favorite player. You're not pointing your finger at the team itself. You're just saying, the guy behind the bench, got to go. Or if you like the coach, he's part with the players, and you're like, I love the coach too. Well, then it's the GM. You say, yeah, the GM's got to go. GM's a problem. And there are many times that I've seen over the summer, Lou Lamoriello's crazy. He doesn't know what he's doing. And then the Islanders still make the playoffs. So I don't know how I can defend some of the moves Lou makes sometimes, but somehow they work a lot of the time. So I would love to have some reason to get right down there with people and agree, but a lot of the time it works out. I don't know how it does either. One of the ones I get a kick out of is Bettman wanted them to lose. Like going into every night's action, and I'll come back to this one at the end of the video too. Like there's a board in Bettman's video, or in Bettman's video, in Bettman's office, and he looks at it and goes, I think tonight I want them to win, them, they have to. And then, yeah, these guys. Yeah, I'm good with that. Make sure all the referees know. That's how we want this to go. And tell them tonight it had better turn out this way or else they're going to get garried. Like, I don't see that. I don't. I really, because the thing is, if who Bettman wants to win was winning, and if the accusation is, well, that Arizona's still Arizona because of Gary Bettman, how did they go winless in 14 straight? You would think if the NHL was going to prop up a team and give them victories, you would think that if it is true that they have given Arizona time and time and time again, chance after chance after chance, wouldn't they want to have them winning the games? So they could say, look, this is a good team. Everything's going good. They're selling out Mullet. Don't look at the capacity. This is a good team. So that's where I have a hard time with it, is that it feels like, okay, well, it's different teams that are at the top a lot of the time, so they just change out who their favorites. Anyways, but again, I'll come back to that. Number 7 is they cheated or they played dirty. So if your team loses, it's with the other team cheated, the other team played dirty. Again, sometimes there's some validity to that. But again, it kind of comes back to then you're getting close to the blame the refs territory, because if the other team cheated and played dirty and won the game, you may also be saying, and the referees just turn their heads and look the other way. How dare they? So this is on the board. It's similar to number 1. It's not that far off from number 1, really, because when you're coming up with 10, it's hard not to come up with ones that are really adjacent to one another. So yeah, cheated and played dirty. Again, it's out there. I think there's just teams that are way more physical than others. The ones that I often see where people are like, oh, this team's dirty, I will look at their hit totals and go, yeah, they throw a lot of hits. So the odds of there being hits that look questionable, higher for them because they throw a higher volume of hits. So you're going to be able to find more that are maybe borderline, in part because they're throwing so many hits every game. So there's going to be times where those hits are a little bit off angle, or it just doesn't quite turn out the way they want it to. But yeah. Number 8, and I'm not saying this is invalid at all, but injuries. So team loses game, and it's like, all right, well, we're missing this guy. At times it can be a little bit odd where they'll say, well, we're missing this. Like, again, and I'm just speaking from my experience of comments here, some of the stuff I see on the Facebook or on that Twitter X thing. And injuries they cite, and I'm thinking, that guy's not, like, I'm not saying they don't miss that player, but he's not that huge difference maker. Shouldn't be the difference between winning or losing, not having that player. But injuries can be a valid reason. It can be frustrating as a fan to watch your team lose. Now, again, for me, from a power rankings perspective, the team's still going to drop because they're still losing the games. But I totally understand the injuries perspective. But it is interesting when both teams are dealing with injuries, and then it becomes a contest of, well, our injuries are worse than your injuries. We got more key guys out. Hey, you're missing two top six forwards and a defenseman. We're missing three top six forwards, and I think that's more, and I think that's more important. It's just it gets kind of silly at that point. Number nine, bad ownership. Bad ownership, and you can gloss over almost anything that a team does. You can say, you know why this team sucks? It's the owner. The reason this team loses all the time is the owner. Now, being in the Vancouver market, do I hear that? Yep. Yep. If the Canucks are not playing well, it's, all Aquilino cares about is just the money side of it. Doesn't really care. Doesn't really care. So, you mean Aquilini. Whatever. It's fine. But yeah, the idea that Francesco would be a terrible owner and he doesn't care. When I've heard it again. I've heard this through sources. He does care. I shouldn't have to specify that, but he does. He does care about the on ice product and the team itself. Just wasn't a big fan of the idea of going through a full rebuild, but there are some teams that are still in rebuilds now that started them a while ago. So I understand that. But bad ownership, you can gloss over almost any loss with that one. That one really is kind of a catch-all, isn't it? And then personal superstition, one of my favorites. One of my best friends for a long, long time. She records Canuck games. She doesn't watch them because she finds if she watches them live, they don't win. And if she records them and watches them later, they win. And she can't figure it out. She knows it's silly. And she'll message me and go, oh, I decided to watch live tonight. They lost. I'm like, well, it's clearly your fault they lost. It's so silly. I know for me personally, I don't wear jerseys of teams I root for on game days. At least I didn't before I had a channel. Now I don't really think about it because it'd get kind of silly. I should do a Dallas video. I can't. They're playing tonight, so it gets kind of silly. But yeah, those superstitions are out there. I even found that, and this was a weird one when I was in middle school. I had a Vancouver Canucks sweatshirt that I would wear after they won, and I found that when that became a rule, that they went on a winning streak. So I was like, all right, I got to make sure I keep doing this or else they might lose. Like if they won a game and I didn't wear that sweatshirt the next day to school, I'd be like, oh no, they won and I didn't wear it. Are they going to lose? And then if they did, it was clearly my fault. I find that honestly quite entertaining. It's one of my favorite things about sports is the superstitions. And of course that would include curses. Our team lost because there's a curse from 1878. Turns out there was a sacrificial goat and had something to do with the circus. And and then the War of 1812 broke out. And from there, we've just been cursed ever since then. Like it's so, and I'm fine with that. I don't really, I try to avoid superstitions at this point in time in my life, but are they still there? Yeah, yeah. If I watch a Boston game and I'm wearing their jersey and they get destroyed 7-1, I'm gonna be like, man, I'm not wearing this jersey again. Not when they're playing games. Not doing it because superstition, right? Now the one thing that I wanted to throw in here is because I always see this. Well, all the results they already know. Okay, so if that were the case, if everything was predetermined, it means that none of it matters. It means that all of the sacrifices players make, all the shot blocking, all the fighting, all of the injuries they go through, all the rehab, it doesn't matter. None of it matters because it's all predetermined. So nothing that players do matters. Those really nice goals you see doesn't matter. None of it matters. So for people who believe that, I don't understand why they still watch sports. I don't know what people would get out of that because I know that for me, if I feel like I don't like how this is working, like even on the officiating question, I've talked about this before. It's why I don't watch the NBA. The NBA I tried when we had the Vancouver Grizzlies, and I got way too upset at officiating way too often. I was like, seriously. And watching the NFL, there are plenty of times where I'm like, how is that not pass interference? And that one is. That doesn't make any sense. Are you kidding me? And so some of those calls make me really upset. And there have been times where I've noticed this especially in the NBA, where sometimes the officials would be kind of being nice to the big star teams, and Vancouver would lose a game. Now I'm not saying they would have won the game, not saying that at all, but the game would be really ugly because Vancouver knew they couldn't touch the other team at all, or they were going to get a foul, and the other team could just run them over and not get a foul. And it got really frustrating to watch that. I have never had that experience watching hockey. I have had experiences where I'm like, seriously, how did they not see that? I've also had experiences where I'm mad at officials, absolutely, but I have never believed that it's predetermined, that this is all just set up. Because if I did, I wouldn't have this channel. I wouldn't watch all the hockey. But I don't understand why people that think that watch the sport. Like if I don't enjoy something or if I think it's all just screwy, I won't watch it. But that's me. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event that you've not done so already. And yeah, I thought I would start the day with something completely different than what I normally talk about. And it's another top 10 list. So there you go. But let me know others too. I know there's probably others. Your team loses, reason being, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.